So if you've been editing videos for years, or if you've never edited a video before, you'll still get something out of this video. Editing isn't just software and plugins and presets, it's decision making. It's a bunch of tiny decisions all stacked up on top of each other to create a cohesive project. So I asked my editing team to show you how they make creative choices. I gave them a video of me giving some advice to creators, and then we passed that file from lead editor to color to graphics to audio. And so you can see how they make decisions that stack up into the final result. So while watching this video, look for these 4 principles that we use to create high quality videos here at MKBHD. So first, good in, good out. You just can't edit your way around poor planning and execution. 2, focus. What you cut is as important as what you keep. 3, don't be boring, but don't be insulting. There's more to editing than just cutting really fast. And 4, know your audience. You know, an A+ quality work designed for a 6-year-old won't feel like A+ work to a college student, so know who you're talking to. So with these in mind, let's start the process. Let's get right into it, beginning with our lead editor, Mariah. Take it away.
I'm Mariah, the lead editor at MKBHD, and today we're going to be talking about 2 scenarios that every editor has encountered. One where you have too much footage, and one where you don't have enough footage. So let's look at some recent videos and break it down. So first, we're gonna start with the robotaxi video, which had way too much footage. So we're gonna talk about the creative decisions I made to subtract.
Truly autonomous driving is one of the hardest technological problems to solve on planet Earth today.
We have kind of the baseline of the structure. The structure is the A roll, right? So him talking, explaining what's happening, and then the chaos is everything from on site. So the first thing to do was to go through all of the hours of footage from the 2 cameras we had, sync them up for all the rides, and then see what happened, what we want to keep, and what we want to throw away. I keep drafts of everything. So ideally you want to have everything so you can always go back and pull something out later if you change your mind. I like to color and label everything. That way when I'm looking at my timeline, I can tell if I'm overusing too much stuff or underutilizing footage that I really should be using. So the second problem I had was actually following the script too much, which is a weird problem to have. So let's take a look at the difference between the first cut and the second cut with this.
So this first robotaxi ride was fascinating. Okay, yeah, this is great. Everything's normal. Robotaxi. Okay.
Hello.
Hello. Fundamentally, it went totally fine. The car showed up, we got in, it drove like a normal person would.
It's probably hard to put your finger on why this edit just doesn't feel right, and that's just part of the puzzle. And it kind of feels like to me that Marques knows something that we don't. A lot of the times I'm my own worst enemy, I'll be honest, but sometimes Marques is my own worst enemy. And so there's a part in the script where he just has a section that says, intercut commentary with the Tesla ride and Waymo ride. The problem with the first couple cuts on this is I was really trying to force having him talking in the A roll with the B roll from the on-site shoot, trying to do present tense and past tense. There's all these different times of things happening, and knowing when is the right time for something is really hard sometimes. So as the editor, you know all the footage, you know everything that's happening, but no one else does. And so that's why when you need feedback, sharing it with other people is really great to get a fresh pair of eyes, see it from a different perspective, and understand why stuff isn't working. With the feedback in mind, now let's take a look at the second version.
Okay. Start ride. So we arrive in 9 minutes. This is
We've got our feedback, we've moved stuff around, we've done a little fixing, but what happens when we actually need to fully remove a scene from the timeline?
My iPhone is, I'm pretty sure, still in that robotaxi that just drove away. How do I get it back? I'm not really sure how to get it back. I need to figure this out.
Marques straight up lost his phone in one of the taxis while he was there, and I could have included all of it, and it would have been dramatic and really funny. And in fact, one of the cars kind of poked fun at him, saying like, don't forget your valuables after the fact. That would have been really funny, but Does it make sense to put in a video that's supposed to be like more informational, like something that's like very to the point? It was part of the experience, but does it kind of lead you astray from what we're really trying to hone in on? So when you're trying to figure out whether you should keep something in your edit or if you should get rid of it, really it just comes down to the value you're proposing to your audience. Does your audience care about this, or is it not important to what you're trying to say? So now let's transition to a scenario where you have too little footage.
So the number one, or there's I guess two main ways I can decide if a subject is worth my audience's time. One is if...
And so the second video I'm gonna show you is a little bit more structured, a little more typical for the main channel. And this is the video that is gonna be passed through all the stages of post-production. You're gonna hear from Ellis, you're gonna hear from Vinh, you're gonna hear from like everybody that touched it. For this video, we wanted to do something a little bit different. And so we asked Marques, what is something you wanna talk about that you don't think would be a good video or wouldn't perform well? And so he wanted to talk about how he picks what videos he makes, which I don't think I've ever heard him talk about either. What no one tells you is when you're the editor, you are at the end of the pipeline. If there's a problem, you are gonna be the one to have to deal with it. For this one, my fear when we were talking about it is it not being visual. And the worst thing you can do is probably tell and not show. For this video, we chose to use a lot of archive footage, and so you'll see the problem with that immediately.
I'm Marques, and this is how I pick what videos I'm gonna make. There's two main ways I can decide if a subject is worth my audience's time. One is if they have shown interest in it in the past.
Originally, I had jumped straight from the intro of how we pick what videos to make straight into the questions, and it just felt really slow. It kind of had no momentum or excitement. If I'm not excited and I'm editing it, you're not gonna be excited if you're watching it. So now let's watch the second version of this intro.
I'm Marques, and this is how I pick what videos I'm gonna make. This is the front glass from the iPhone 6. And so here, I'm gonna show you everything I learned about what spot actually is, but I'll leave you with this. I've got my upsides and downsides to Vision Pro.
So the lesson from this re-edit is not to make montages. They're great, they work sometimes, but ultimately being an editor is about focusing on clear communication and problem solving, and a lot of times you'll be given stuff that just isn't very good. It's gonna happen. Focusing on your experience and the tools you have will really just be the best thing you can do. But ultimately, there was actually a really good reason to add the montage to this video. Something I will never do to you is I will never lie to you. I will not pretend this video is something it's not. And if I was to do a Mr. Beast crazy montage opener with text and stuff flying around, I've said it before and I said it again, I don't like it and I don't think it makes sense for what we do personally. Setting up from the get-go that this is a clip from 11 years ago, it's not new, it's not fresh, but it is a memory. A good intro doesn't just hook the audience, but it also sets up the expectation for the viewer, and that's so important. Something else I did in this video was a really simple thing, and it can really uplift a video, is just adding transitional music. It helps move things along and provide context.
There are some video opportunities that have come across my inbox or my social feeds that are totally disconnected from like purchase.
If I'm treating this like a main channel video, Marques does not like having music typically running for more than like 20, 30 seconds. Like he says it makes things feel like an ad, but in this case, there's no product. So really like, what are we advertising? Usually I use it as a transitional period to kind of like segue to your brain that we're about to switch to something else. So you'll hear later from Ellis, but he told me something really important that stuck with me, and that when you're picking music, it needs to convey something that isn't already being told through video. Something subliminal, something to set the tone, the vibe, or set up expectations for later.
I also think YouTube is a treadmill, and if you try to chase past success over and over and over, you end up kind of burning out a little bit, and I think you should look at what you enjoy making just as much as what worked in the past on your channel. So all of that.
Just kind of a nice wrap up. Clearly this video is not completely done, and we still have sound to pass off to Ellis, we still have a bunch of stuff to do, and we also still need to do the color, as I'm sure you can tell. So you'll be hearing soon from Vinh, who's actually gonna take over from here, and he's gonna fix the ugly color. Thanks, Vinh. We sit this close normally.
Marques, what are you editing
right now. I'm editing a video where I ask everyone to subscribe to the studio channel. It's gonna be a banger. It's super short.
Hey, Vinh here, art director for MKBHD channel. Essentially, color grading is putting emphasis and de-emphasis on parts of your image to tell the story. So for this section, let's talk about prep, LUTs, and plugins. For this tutorial, I'm just using DaVinci Resolve. That's what I prefer, but you can use any editor. Premiere, Final Cut, Sony Vegas, they're all good. Based off of this clip, you can tell that already before the LUT is applied, there is a big blue cast on the whole background, and that's because we have two sky panels blasting at the ceiling, and then we fine-tuned the hue number. We took a couple minutes to do that, and we would do camera tests to see if the hue is correct for the background. 80% of your image should be done on camera, and then your last 20% is color grading. You can't fix bad lighting in post. It doesn't matter what camera you're using, as long as you're shooting in log, and if it happens to have 10-bit codec, that's what really matters, because 8-bit is a little too small. You don't get as much dynamic range in post. More data basically means more flexibility in post. You've probably seen this acronym a couple times now on the internet. LUT, it stands for lookup table. What does that mean? No one really knows, but it's essentially a filter that goes on top of your footage. On the main channel, we seem to gravitate towards just using the regular red Rec. 709 conversion LUT, just because that's what we're used to. For Marques's A-roll, we shot on a Canon C70. If we apply the LUT, this is the default conversion. This is what we saw on camera. So right now, this is just the default LUT. I generally don't like using this because it's not catered to the camera. From the R5, R5 Mark II, C70, in the C300 Mark II, literally all of them shoot C-Log 2 differently. So Canon is not just guilty of this, Sony is very guilty of this. They have too many cameras, and so that S-Log 3 LUT is gonna look different on all of their cameras based off of the stock Sony LUT. Personally, I don't like using the stock LUTs unless they're from Red or Ari. Most of the time, I would prefer even a YouTuber LUT as an alternative because they're catered to the camera. So here we have a custom LUT from our YouTube friend, Tyler Stallman. Shout out to Tyler. His is actually based off Ari's color space. So you can tell it's a little bit more saturated. His is more stylized, so I can't push and pull as much, but it's already so good that I don't really want to do much to this. Based off of this image, he seems a little bit underexposed, so you should have a 3-wheel editor, and there's an offset tab, which is like a general exposure. All your editors should have that. Plugins can vary in price point. Some of them are 100, some of them are 1,000. This one I'm using is Dehancer. It's about 400 bucks for 2 seats. So in this situation, I have the C70 camera selected and C-Log 2 Cinema Gamut. The company that made this plugin tests all their cameras specifically, so anytime that you see that conversion done, it's made for that camera because they all shoot a little bit differently. I already like the starting point a lot better than the stock LUT. So for me, I would just bump up exposure a little bit, and I already had this done, but I turned down saturation a little bit. A big reason as to why this costs $400 is because of the stylistic effects that you get along with it. So you have things like halation that adds red to the edges on the chromatic aberration. So any highlight you see has like a little red flare to it, and it can warm up the image a little bit, makes it look a little retro and older. Bloom is basically your diffusion filter, but you can dial it in post. It lets you pick how intense you have it. You can even pick what kind of camera, like film stock, it's replicating. Older cameras usually bloom harder, so that's why if you pick 8mm, he looks really soft. And if you pick 70mm, that's a more modern camera. All of these you can fine tune with the sliders, and you basically just pick through a bunch of boxes. It's pretty easy to use. If you're trying to achieve a more stylized look, well, you're gonna have to do that during production because you can't stylize what's not stylized. Ultimately, color grading should serve the project itself. If you don't push yourself in production, you can't push your image. So go out and take a risk. As of right now, this looks pretty good, but that's only half of the story. Now we need to spruce it up with some graphics, so let's hand it off to Michael.
Hello, I'm Michael. I'm the head of motion design, and I'm excited to walk you through my process. Let's go ahead and break down the overlay animation that I made for this video.
So a mistake I see a lot of newer creators making, specifically, is to look at what works on other channels and then just try to copy it, one for one. I think that's the worst thing you can do, because they don't have a reason to watch the thing you're making over the thing that already exists.
So as it turns out, we lost all of the footage of me talking directly to camera, so from here on out, you will be seeing a little cartoon version of me that Olivia, our other animator, so kindly created. Enjoy that. Probably for something like this, I probably actually spent more time developing the flat, static graphics in Adobe Illustrator than I did actually animating them in After Effects. The most important part of motion design is getting the design part right first. So for me, what that looks like, yeah, just building everything in Illustrator first. Everything that you see is made up of vectorized paths, which means I can move things independently and not be worried about losing information or things being stuck together without using words, or at least very many words. I wanted to show the abstract concept of something being viewed on the internet and then something being viewed on your computer as a project creative thing that you're making. And I felt like the best way to do that was YouTube and Final Cut Pro. So what I did was I took a screenshot of both of those things and I oversimplified the heck out of it. I mean, this is what Final Cut Pro looks like. I mean, maybe that's not a surprise to most people watching this video, but I was like, what parts of this make it look like Final Cut Pro? And I was like, oh, there's a little play button with information, or the time code. Once again, it's like I could have included all of this and it would have still read as Final Cut, but he might have been distracted with is he talking about color grading? Is he talking about the audio levels? Is he talking about the effects? Is he talking about, but it's like, no, I'm just talking about generally making a project. Everything I need for this animation has been built here. So at this point, we're done with Illustrator for the most part, and we're ready to transfer to After Effects. I use a sneaky little plugin called Overlord, just for those who care. It's really great at porting things over. But to move on, so one of the first things we learned in motion design school was the 12 principles of animation, which is originally developed by Walt Disney. And a lot of that actually really applies to simple graphic animation here as well. The main 3 principles that I want to talk about are easing, timing, and staging. Easing is, I would say, one of the biggest telltale signs between an amateur motion design project and a more professional motion design project. And really what that means is making movement feel lifelike and real. So this is an example of an object moving with no easing. It gets the job done, the object moves, but there's no life to it. It's very robotic. Here is an example of an object that has the easing applied. What it shows is the object starting really slow and ending really slow, and in between it has this sort of fluid movement. The object on the bottom just doesn't feel real. Every single keyframe in this video, anytime I move something, there's easing to it, meaning that it starts slow, moves fast, and ends slow. Ordinarily, if you're getting started with After Effects, I would not recommend jumping straight into plugins, because I think it's really easy to get distracted and excited about flashy plugins that seem to solve all of your motion design problems. But this is one plugin that I do think is actually really helpful for all motion designers, even if you're just getting started. It's called Motion Studio. It's designed by someone named Matt, who has a YouTube channel called Mount Mograph. A lot of times if you want to change the easing of an object, you can go into the graph editor and you can adjust these handles. And it works, but it's a little finicky and it's hard to be precise with it. So this tool allows you to dial in exactly what easing quantity you want. So let's say we want 50% on the out and 20% on the in, and it just sets it for you. Literally every single object that I drop into After Effects, I highlight the keyframes and I hit this little preset. Slow at the beginning and then really slow at the end. It's like a nice easy movement that I figured works. There's a whole grid of different functions that this thing does, and some of them are very elaborate, but the basics are really great. I recommend checking out Mount Mograph on YouTube and also checking out Motion Studio online. They have a whole breakdown of everything it does, but this is sort of the basics. So another really important principle that applies really well to our YouTube videos is timing. Really what that translates to is making sure that the beats that happen with what Marques is saying line up well with the movement that is on screen.
I think that's the worst thing you can do, because they don't have a reason to watch the thing you're making over the thing that already exists.
So in this case, I want to make sure that the spotlight and the eyeballs are shifting focus from one side to the other at the exact time that Marques is saying other person's content. I see so many things online where what is being talked about and what is being shown has a half a second delay or even a second delay, and you really miss it. Like, it's actually really hard to follow. One of the most important things in design in general is being intentional about where the viewer's eye goes. With motion design, it's a lot to expect viewers to focus on the words that someone is saying and the visuals on top of that. It's really easy to have those fight each other and to make it actually harder to understand the concept if you're distracted by what's on screen. It's like step 1, so show the shapes. Step 2, introduce the YouTube video. Step 3, introduce the timeline. Step 4, re-put the movement back just on the video screen to drive home that this is a copy of the original. So now you're focused back on the shapes again. If we were to just have the shapes move right away with the timeline, then you'd sort of be like taking that in and the shapes and all of that, but we're doing one thing at a time. The next thing I want people to do is focus on the differences between these two. So we get rid of everything that's on YouTube, on the timeline and everything, and we're just showing the shapes. The little eyeballs in the middle are sort of just like a fun element to keep this frame interesting, because otherwise it'd be like a pretty boring frame. But we're going even further. We're saying, I want the viewer's eyes to be on this one, and then as Marques is talking about the original, I want the eyes to be on the original. So I'm literally putting a spotlight on them. It's like, I want it to be as easy as possible for the viewer to like have zero strain when they're looking at this. Okay, effects/plugins that I use almost every day in After Effects. For main channel, number one effect that I will slap onto something to make it feel on brand and give it a little bit more energy is the glow effect. So we're going stylized glow and we're adding it. I think with every effect, there's a right and wrong way to use it. And I think with this one, it can look horrible if you just like slap it on there, but a lot of times I'll like duplicate it and make it a little bit more intentional. And that looks like way too much, but we're gonna dial it back. I think a nice subtle glow goes a long way. So a lot of times on the studio channel, we will use an effect called turbulence displace paired with an expression called wiggle, which allows us to have clean vector shapes, but look a little bit like hand-drawn sort of stop motion-y. So the circle on the left has a bit more of like a hand-drawn look to it, and the circle on the right is just the plain shape. Basically what turbulence displace is doing is it's giving this shape a randomly generated slight wobbly variation to it. So with one effect, you get sort of a smooth wobbly egg. And then as we add more effects, you get more grunge and more texture to it. And then we've set the random seed to have a wiggle effect that basically posterized time says every 3 seconds, change this value, and wiggle says every 3 seconds, change it by 150 points. If we multiply that by 3 at different sizes, you get this hand-drawn look. People shouldn't be thinking about all the stuff that I'm doing in the background. People shouldn't be thinking about all these freaking keyframes and all this like easing that takes place to make everything feel natural. It's like, it should just feel like information that's easy to understand. People always say this and it's really cheesy, but good design is invisible. So this animation looks great and I'm really happy with where it's at. But in order for this to feel super polished, I think we need to get some sound design on here. So I'm gonna let Ellis do his magic.
Thanks, Michael. Now, time to get into our 3-part series on doing sound and videos. And this part 1 is possibly the most important. It's music. Remember that speaker video I did on this channel like about a year ago? Well, the key to making that video work was using bebop rhythm sections under all that stuff I was saying. You've probably noticed a lot of videos on this channel use up-tempo jazz rhythm sections as their underscore, and it's not an accident. You have seen tons of media that uses those same bebop drums and bass to get a frenetic sound, a behind-the-scenes sound, an industrious sound, and that sound's already in your viewer's head. So when you're picking music for your video, you're not just picking a song that you like, you're picking a song that your viewers will personally resonate with. So where do you find that track? Well, the answer is pretty obvious. It's epidemicsound.com. I don't know you. I don't know what kind of content you're trying to make, but I do know whatever you need, it's on there. You need something with some epic cinema builds? It's on there. What about some 90s grunge stuff? Chet, you betcha. Japanese classical music? It's on there. I've seen it. They even have whatever this is. Once you have your song, you can download the stems and easily start editing it. And if you're not comfortable editing stems or you're just getting started, Epidemic Sound has an adapt feature that helps you easily make a song fit your video. So much of the music and sound effects we use here at MKBHD come from Epidemic Sound. And now you can get access to that great library with the link in the description, which will give you a 30-day free trial and access to the MKBHD playlist we made for you. And now that you know where to get your sound and music for your next video, we're gonna throw it over to the newest member of our team, Rufus, who will hopefully save you hours of time on your next production.
Hey, I'm Rufus. I record most of our videos, and I make sure the foundation that Ellis gets when he goes in to do that sound design is really strong. So why am I talking to you in the editing video? You spend a lot of time in the edit fixing bad audio. Everybody has this problem. I've had this problem, Eric has had this problem, Rich has had this problem. When you get bad audio on your desk, you have to spend a lot of time fixing it. And if you had just placed your microphone, which is free and not that hard, you can save all of that time, all of that strife. So if you give me 5 minutes, I'll show you how to do it. The key to recording great sound is 90% putting the microphone where it needs to go. The rest of it is, I'll cover it at the end of the lightning round, but you can forget about it for now. Your brain, when you walk into a room, is telling you kind of automatically what to focus on, and it's doing so subconsciously. The microphone does not hear like that. So I'm gonna teach you how to hear like a microphone in order to think like a microphone, to point like a microphone. So what do you want to hear? Well, in our case, we want to hear the sound of Marques Brownlee, who sat in this very chair moments ago. Here at MKBHD, we typically use, for almost everything, shotgun microphones. And these microphones, if you watched our last video, you know this, have a polar pattern, which is very directional. It hears a lot like a cone. But the thing is, the cone has a limit. It has an end point. And a microphone that's pointed the complete wrong direction, but is really close to me, is gonna do a much better job of hearing me than a microphone that's across the room pointed straight at me. But we're assuming that your microphone is basically close enough. And for us, that's right on the edge of frame. Like, this one's literally right here. That narrows it down to 180 degrees. So the microphone's gonna be in front of Marques somewhere because his voice is going forward, and that's what we want to hear. So why is the microphone not directly above him or directly below him, where you often see shotgun microphones? Why is it right here? Well, it's because we're in a room with sounds like our air conditioner. That air conditioner makes a noise. So if we were below Marques, we'd be pointed up at that. So that knocks out this bottom position. We also have a light right here. The light makes a noise. It has a fan in it, and you can hear that. So we don't really want the microphone to be right by the light. So that knocks out, this chunk. And lastly, it's been in front of you the whole time, the desk, which, you're right, it doesn't make any sound by itself, but when Marques speaks, his voice can come out, bounce off of the desk, and then into the microphone. And we don't want to record that. It's like shooting Marques through a mirror. So this position, where the mic ended up, means the cone is pointed at what we want to hear and isn't pointed at what we don't want to hear. Quick lightning round of some questions people have asked is, how loud should you be recording? If you have a machine that's recording sound, which we're assuming that you do, it should have levels on it that will tell you in decibels how loud you are. You want to be around minus 20-ish on average, and the absolute loudest someone's going to talk should be around minus 12. If you're there, you're pretty safe, and then they can go even a little bit louder and you'll still not be clipping. If you hit 0, that's clipping, and it sounds like this. So you don't want it. 2, generally speaking, if you're recording dialogue, which we're assuming you are, you want to turn on a low cut. It might be on your microphone, it might be on your recording device, but that basically means that wind noise, like sort of bumping, rumbling, things like that, it doesn't completely get rid of them, but it makes sure that you don't get so much that it overwhelms the dialogue that you're trying to record. 3rd, if you're buying your first shotgun microphone, stick to the bottom end. The Audio-Technica AT875R is a great microphone. It's pretty cheap, and it has no reason to sound as good as it does. It beats basically all of the microphones in the mid-range, in my opinion, which means if you have that microphone and you're using it well, upgrading to a mid-range mic is not going to make things sound much better. Upgrading to a flagship like the MKH416, the Schoeps CMIT 5U, the DPA 4017, you're going to hear a difference. And that's worth it. Those are microphones that are going to last you a lifetime. Only buy those if you're ready to really take things seriously. Everyone else, the mid-range isn't really worth it. If you're looking at sound recording and this stuff looks big and scary and things, it's as simple as pointing the microphone at what you want to record and not pointing it at what you don't want to record. Every part of sound, when you get down to it, is like that. They're not that complicated. Do not let anyone tell you it is more complicated than that. So now your video sounds good, but your video could sound better.
What is up, gamers? Ellis here, ya boy, and today we're going to talk about sound design. That's the part of the production process where you take sounds that you didn't record on set and you put them in your video. And now I have a feeling you're probably wondering one big question. Rule number one, things that move probably make a sound. To show this, let's crack open the OnePlus 13S intro we did on the main channel a little while back. So, this intro is full of motion. There's just so much of it in here, but let's focus on the four main moves that the phone actually does. First, it turns 90 degrees to the left. Then it turns 90 degrees to the left again. And then it turns 90 degrees to the left a third time. And then the phone falls off screen. Seems pretty simple, right? But how do we actually know what those moves are supposed to sound like? First off, how big is the phone? The phone's huge. It's the biggest thing on screen. For a lot of it, it takes up pretty much the entire frame, which means even though the phone in real life is phone-sized, in video life, the phone is ginormous. And what do ginormous things sound like? They're big, they're low-pitched, you could hear they have mass. So let's make the phone's motion big and low-pitched. Easy. But why is it moving? There's no actuator, there's no hand, there's no machine turning the phone in the video. So that means the only thing it's touching is air, which is lucky for us because air actually makes a lot of sounds. It sounds like the right call is probably a whoosh, but what kind of whoosh? A big, low-pitched whoosh where you can hear the mass. All right, so remember that thing that Michael said about easing and how it can make stuff feel like natural and lifelike? That's really important for us as sound designers. Let's take a look at how these phones actually move, right? They're not constant. They start slow, and then they sort of accelerate in their turns. And lucky for us, those big whoosh sounds are perfect for that. They go whoosh. Fantastic, easy breezy, beautiful cover girl. But if you noticed, the last move, that last 90-degree turn in this intro, does not have any easing on it. Michael's computer glitched out, he couldn't get the easing to work, and he just said, let it ride. And so for the last sound in this intro, I needed to pick something that still sounded big and massive, but in real life would have no easing, just start and stop. And so what better sound than a boulder?
That's just a stupid boulder.
Play this.
Just a boulder. It's a rock.
Didn't you add a slide whistle in here too?
Oh, yeah. I did do that. I don't know, I just kind of freestyled that one. It was just sort of like intuition. So I guess we should just move on to the next rule. Yes, you read that right. Silence actually does make a sound. Don't believe me? Look at how painful this is. I told you, silence actually does make a sound in our brains, because in real life, I promise you, you have never actually heard real silence before. Even the quietest places on Earth still have a little bit of sound to them. And so if you suck all the sound out of your video at any given moment, it's gonna feel weird and awkward and painful, and most importantly, not believable. So what do sound designers use in those sound holes that sounds like silence? Well, there are two tricks we like to use. The first one is called reverb. Sound gets everywhere. It's kind of like sand after the beach. And as sound bounces off all the objects around you, it's all gonna make it back to your ear, and we as humans perceive that as this thing we call reverb. Our brains actually get a lot of subconscious information about the kind of space something is happening in from the reverb. I use this trick on the OnePlus 13S video. When we suck all the music out and things get silent, I carry through a lot of that silence with a long reverb tail that lets you know, hey, this big, empty, limitless space we're in, that exists, and it sounds like this. The other trick we use is called ambience, which is just like big fancy speak for background noise. Background noise is a super clutch way to inject some believability into your sequence. Check out this shot from our video about the fastest car in the world from a little bit ago.
That's crazy.
This shot looks fake. It looks like a video game, but I promise it is 100% real. There's no CGI, there's no compositing, it's just kind of nutso. And so we needed to add a few sound effects to kind of make people believe that we actually got the shot. And I'll tell you this, it wasn't the sound of the Porsche that we added in post that made it believable. It wasn't the sound of the Rimac that we added in post that made it feel believable. It was the sound of the birds that weren't even there in real life. There were not even birds that day when we were shooting, but it's a big up high shot. You see all this green tree grass around you. No one even noticed I did that, which means it worked. All right, rule number 3 is use sounds that actually mean stuff to your audience. There are some sounds that get stuck in your head in a cool, emotional way. And there's a great example of that in this OnePlus intro. Take a look at the very first thing that happens in this intro, right? We watch the phone get traced. It's very simple. It's just this writing floating on screen that traces the outline of the phone. What sound does tracing sound like? There's a bunch of obvious answers. There's pencil on paper. There is pencil on cardboard. There is marker on dry erase board. There is chalk stick on chalkboard. There's a million different writing sounds that we all agree like, yep, that's what writing sounds like. Heard that before, makes sense. But those sounds won't make you feel something. I think it's safe to assume that a lot of you at home are around my age or around Marques's age. You grew up in North America or Europe, and you probably watched something get traced on TV as a kid about 10 million times. And whether or not you knew that about yourself, that's probably what mid-air tracing sounds like in your heart. So what is actually in that famous Disney Channel sound? It's mostly a roadside flare and a bell tree. And that is exactly what I did in this video.
You are watching Disney Channel.
No one batted an eye, no one questioned it, no one even noticed. And that is the goal of sound design. So unless your name is Eric Adal or Mark Mangini, don't try to be a hero. Don't go too hard. You'll know you did your job well when no one notices your job at all. So I'm gonna put my money where my mouth is and actually use these techniques in the video you're watching right now. So here's the final cut.
I'm Marques, and this is how I pick what videos I'm gonna make. This is the front glass from the iPhone 6. And so here, I'm gonna show you everything I learned about what Spot actually is, but I'll leave you with this. I've got my upsides and downsides to Vision Pro. I've never regretted making a video just for the views. I think most of the videos we make, there's a bunch of different reasons why I made it. But if you want to go all the way to the far end of the spectrum of this one we know is going to get views, it's the iPhone unboxing video. It's just one of those things where people like seeing shiny new things come out of boxes, and that's fine. Actually, the audience is smart. They can tell when the creator especially is not incredibly excited about a video. So I think a lot of the comments were like, yeah, this isn't important or interesting. Why is this a video? And it's cool to see that because they're picking up on exactly how I'm feeling about the video, which means I communicated it well. But also, I didn't regret it because it still performed the way we thought it would, and it still got people to subscribe and to see the channel and see the videos. Even if they weren't having the most in-depth thoughts after watching a video about a new purple colored iPhone, they could still subscribe. Two main ways I can decide if a subject is worth my audience's time. One is if they have shown interest in it in the past, or two is if I'm interested in it and I've been able to connect it to things that my audience is interested in the past. Usually I look forward by looking backwards. So I'll give an example. A video we did recently, which was reviewing the robotic hand. I thought it was awesome and I was super interested in it when I got to test it. So that was a pretty good indicator for me right off the bat. I have also done a video in the past talking about prosthetics, 3D printed prosthetics for pets. And while the video didn't get a ton of views or attention necessarily, it was still really well received and people were interested in it. And I thought it was a really fun video to make. So when we looked at this new thing, which is this robotic hand, okay, it's new, it's different, but clearly it's tech, which the audience is interested in. And the last time we talked about potentially awesome prosthetics that people can use, it also went really well. So just finding those connections to the past made it pretty obvious that this would be a fun video that would be good to make. And there was also the excitement of tying it to a certain other video another channel made, so it was gonna be fun no matter what. There are some video opportunities that have come across my inbox or my social feeds that are totally disconnected from like purchase decisions. Usually when I make a video, even if it seems like kind of disconnected or a little bit out there, you can in some way connect it to this is the tech that's going to affect me as a regular person in the future. So the stuff that's like, this is the super cool tech behind like how skyscraper elevators work. There's just no way for me to connect it to you, the viewer. Those are the ones I just pass on. So a mistake I see a lot of newer creators making, specifically, is to look at what works on other channels and then just try to copy it one for one. I think that's the worst thing you can do because they don't have a reason to watch the thing you're making over the thing that already exists. So the more you can make it your own interpretation or the more you can bring in various sources of inspiration, the better. But so I used to do a lot more list type of videos, like top 5 this, top 10 that, and they were great. So like format-wise, you could optimize for attention. You count down from 5 to 1, people stay for the whole video. You could pick lots of different types of topics. It was just kind of a free content spin a wheel generator, just top 5, insert whatever you want here. But I stopped doing a lot of those because I just felt like they didn't provide as much value as I was hoping. I was hoping to help people learn stuff, experience stuff, feel like they know what it's like to own a gadget before actually buying it. And the top 5s are more on the pure entertainment value side of the spectrum. And other channels just started doing way more of them, and that kind of became their thing, and I just stopped doing top 5s. I also think YouTube is a treadmill, and if you try to chase past success over and over and over, you end up kind of burning out a little bit, and I think you should look at what you enjoy making just as much as what worked in the past on your channel. So all of that. Hey, Olivia, you did most of the graphics on this video, right?
Yeah, I did.
So you should have a segment in this video, right?
No!